Hello, 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 wonderful learners of OK Academy. Welcome to the maiden edition of OK Academy e-learning program for Term 3. I am Uncle Eric, your science facilitator. In today's lesson, we are going to look at one of the easiest topics in the world, and that is in today's lesson, we are going to look at temperature. Sometimes when the weather is very cold, there is something we usually do, and that is to boil hot water to enable us bath. Have you seen the difference between boiled water and an unboiled one? The boiled one is always hot. On the other hand, the water that has not been boiled is usually cold. The one that is hot is always termed as having high temperature. In other words, any substance that is hot is termed to be having high temperature. Whereas those that are cold are usually termed as having low temperature. Now let's make some comparisons here. Have you ever enjoyed ice cream? Does it have high temperature or low temperature? You are right. It has low temperature. What about fire? Have you ever cooked with fire before? Does it have high temperature or low temperature? Yes, it has high temperature. I know you can give out a lot of examples of substances or objects that have high temperature or low temperature. What do we mean by temperature? As I was speaking, I said temperature over and over again. Temperature is the degree of hotness or coldness of an object or body. Temperature is the degree of hotness or coldness of an object or body. You can use any of them. Let me add another definition. Probably you like to choose one of them. Temperature is the measure of how hot or cold an object is. This is a very simple definition. You can choose any of them should in case mommy, daddy, uncle, or anyone in the world ask for the definition of temperature. I hope that is clear. Good. Now, with temperature, there are some units that are used in checking for it. That's what we are going to look at now. After measuring, after measuring temperature, these are some of the units you can come by. These are the units in which temperature can be measured. 1, we have the Celsius scale. 2, Kelvin scale. Funny enough, there's also a name, right? A common name, right? Anyway, Kelvin scale is also known as thermodynamic scale. And lastly, Fahrenheit scale. This is to mention a few. Now, note that the most commonly used scale out of these 3 is the Celsius scale. That's what most people use. But the one that has been accepted internationally, in other words, known as the SI unit, for measuring internationally is the Kelvin scale. Note the difference. Celsius scale is very common, but Kelvin scale is the SI unit. I hope that is clear enough. Now, how do we write Celsius? That will be the next thing we are going to look at. How we write Kelvin, and lastly, Fahrenheit. Now, assuming I've recorded temperature in Celsius scale, it means my final answer is going to be in degree Celsius. This degree Celsius I'm talking about cannot be written in full. You know, sometimes when you try to write certain things in full, it makes whatever you are doing bulky. Therefore, we have a short way of writing degree Celsius, which is this small o you see up there stands for degree, whereas the C stands for Celsius. So in a nutshell, I can record if I should write this, it means I have written 37 degrees Celsius. Note that. The next one is Kelvin. Of course, Kelvin, wouldn't have a degree. We usually write Kelvin as capital K. So I can decide to write this means 274 Kelvin. Lastly, we have the this one has a degree as well, which can be written simply as if I should write this, it means 352 degrees Fahrenheit. Take note of that. Now, before I wrap up, in this pandemic, you've been hearing of how we've been checking the temperature of people. Yet you don't know the normal body temperature of every human being. Find time to check your temperature. You can ask your mommy or daddy, or when you go to any hospital around, they will do you the honor of checking your temperature. Now, the normal body temperature of every human being is approximately 37 degrees Celsius. That's the normal body temperature of every human. Now, before water can turn into ice or become solid, it should have a temperature of 0 degrees Celsius. This is very simple, isn't it? When you put water on fire, it gets to a certain temperature before it begins to boil. Or in other words, you see bubbles coming out of the water. We term that as the boiling point of that water. Usually, it is 100 degrees Celsius. I hope you enjoyed the lesson. In our next lesson, we are going to look at some of the devices that can be used to measure temperature. Now, a recap of what we did. First and foremost, we looked at what we mean by temperature, where we said temperature is the degree of hotness or coldness of an object or body. I also gave you another definition of hot or cold an object is. We also got to know some of the substances that have high temperature and low temperature. That brought us to the units for measuring temperature, being in Celsius scale, Kelvin scale, Fahrenheit scale. We looked at the short way to write these units. We've also gotten to know the normal body temperature of every human, the cooling point, and then the boiling point of water. Thanks so much for your time. Till we meet again, stay safe and have a lovely day. Bye-bye.